Hello, how y'all doing? Welcome to the Tea Factory podcast. Um, so today we are talking about um, Bell Collective. Bell Collective, I think this is the season finale, and it's crazy how it's already the season finale, and we haven't even had, I think, what is it, 8 episodes, and it's already the season finale. This is like a short season. I don't know what's going on. Carlos King, um, Kingdom Reign, Kingdom Reign Entertainment. I don't know what's going on, but this is a very short year. I mean, short season. But here we are, episode 7, episode 7, and let's see, what is it called? It is episode 7, and it's called Believe in Miracles. That's what it's called. Believe in Miracles. So we're going to read the copyright real quick. Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976 says there is an allowance for fair use of copyrighted materials for such purposes as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research as examples of activities that may qualify as fair use. So basically, this um, episode 7 begins with the girls coming back from the Gulf Port, from the Biloxi, Mississippi area. And that was the girls' trip that Carrie had took them to. So it opens up with Letitia coming home, and Glen is at home. It looked like he had brought her some takeout food. And she's talking to him and telling him, that it was a good trip, that her and Latrice did sit down and talk. However, she's saying that she still feels like the two people that she cares about, the two people that she also always shows up for, they don't show up for her. She's talking about Glen and Latrice. And while she was speaking, I'm thinking to myself, girl, the main person that you need to have the problem with is sitting right in front of you. That's the main person. But, you know, we saying that, all of us who, we have been saying the same thing. Those of us who watch the show and who review the show have been saying that, Glenn's not going to change. Glenn is full of shit. He's not taking accountability for his actions. And, and the problem is sitting right in front of her, and she refuses to acknowledge that and see that. And at the end of the day, if she loves it, if she loves it, we like it, or whatever. If she likes it, we love it. So it is what it is. So next we have Latrice. She, goes to the condo because that's where Cliff is. And from the preview before, when they showed that part right there, they always made it seem like he was at the condo and she was at home, and she happened to pack up her stuff and go to the condo and say, honey, I'm home. From the preview, before we saw the girls' trip, that's what the impression it gave. But now you can kind of make it make sense now. And now we know what happened. She was already out of town. She was in the Gulfport, and then when she came back, he was at the condo, and he told her he was going to be at the condo. So she just ended up going straight over there. Instead of going to the house, they went to the condo, or at least to film. So now it kind of puts, we look at it different, because at first we were looking at it like it was some shisty stuff going on, like maybe he was at the condo doing inappropriate stuff, and then she just happened to pop up on him. That's what it looked like. That's what it was given at first when they were doing the preview. But now we know that's not the case. However, when she came in, though, I did notice that they didn't greet each other. Like, she didn't give him a hug or a kiss. They didn't greet each other. So I don't know if she was already there and they had to react it and play. Because, this is supposed to be reality, but I feel like they act, okay? So I don't know if it was like, okay, go back out with the suitcase, come back in so we can, record the scene. Because I find it odd that as a married couple who haven't seen each other, she hasn't been home. I don't know how long they were in Gulfport, if they were there for 3 or 5 days or a whole week, it doesn't matter the fact that she was just gone for a couple of days as a married couple that you wouldn't greet each other with a hug or a kiss or something, but there was no greeting between Latrice and Cliff. So I noticed that. So I wonder if that was just a reenactment to pick up the story from where it had left off. So I don't know. But I noticed that, I noticed. And so, and the condo is like, it's small. It's like, the bed is right there, and then boom, the couch is right there, and then boom, the sink is right there, and then the closet. So it's more like a studio than a condo. For me, when I think of a condo, it's like, I mean, it can still be considered a condo, but for me, a condo usually is like an apartment, but a nicer apartment, a fancier apartment. Either fancy because where it's located and the amenities that it has, or um, the way, it could be one bedroom, with the door. Okay, one bedroom with the door, and then the kitchen's over there and the living room. That's what I picture a condo to be, but to me that looked more like a studio, because it didn't have the bedroom did not have a door, so the bed was right there, the couch, the sink. But anyway, that's just my opinion. So then, Latrice is talking to Cliff. She's telling him about the trip, and she told him that her and Letitia talked, but it wasn't. They're not back where they used to be. Like Letitia's still blaming Latrice for everything, and her and Glenn is not taking any accountability for their actions. And so Latrice tells Cliff that her and Cliff need to be on one accord and on one page. I don't know where that came about. I guess maybe because the issue with the condo, she doesn't like that he spends a lot of time at the condo. She wants him to be more at home, and so she tells them they need to have a united front, and they need to be on the same page. And so then next is Glenn and Letitia. Glenn in his confessional says that he needs to talk to Cliff because he feels that Cliff and everybody else is coming for him and his wife again versus taking actions. I mean accountability for his action. Um, so then next we have Tamara meeting up with the financial planner. The financial planner happens to be someone that her boyfriend knows, and so they're talking about saving money and being financially responsible, and money for the wedding, and money and saving money for the baby. And the guy, the financial planner, I liked what he said when he came in. The way he spoke about sometimes how hard it is for a black man. Sometimes to find a good job, to have a good job, and to be financially responsible, especially when in the black community most of the time we're not really taught that how to have financial responsibility. That we don't have access to financial stability either. Most of the time, we're having to learn from friends and different people, but not in our families because that's just not something that's really taught or talked of. Because usually, most people live in paycheck to paycheck, so they don't have extra money to save for a wedding or to save for a college fund, to save for this or that. It's hard to do when you live in paycheck to paycheck. So, and the way the guy um, explained to Tamara, coming from a black man's perspective, I thought that was that was really good. That was really good, and it helped uh, Damon because you can tell that he was a little bit embarrassed to be on national TV to be talking about his financial status. I'm sure he was, but you can tell he was a little bit uneasy. But the guy made him feel better, and then plus he said it was someone that he already knew. So the way he broke it down, I appreciated it too. As a viewer, I like what he said, and he was right on point. So next we have Glenn. He's at Taste to talk to Cliff about what happened at the house. Okay, first of all, for me, I feel like okay, when it comes to Glenn, Glenn does not want to grow up. Like if when I was sitting here looking at Glenn, Glenn is not an ugly man. He is a handsome brother, but Glenn wants to be a YN. That's what Glenn wants to be. He got two diamonds in his ear. He has, he had the watch on. He had the chain. It's like, he. If you look at Glenn, the way he talks, the way he dresses, and his mannerism is like someone that wants to be a hip hop artist or a rapper. The way he carries himself and the way he talks, he wants to be a player. He wants to be flashy. You know, when that scene, all I was doing was just looking at Glenn, and so for me, it was like when I saw that, it dawned on me like Glenn is not trying to be responsible. He's not trying to take accountability for his actions. He's not trying to change. Glenn wants to be a YN. That's what Glenn wants to do. He wants to be a rapper and have that flamboyant lifestyle that rappers have. That's what he wants to do. So he's not going to change. I'm not going to say never because you never say never, but from what I can see, he does not want to change. And so he's talking to Cliff, and he's telling Cliff, man, I don't appreciate how y'all like ambushed me and my wife at your house. I thought y'all was our friends and blah blah blah. Wah wah wah. And Cliff is basically, he's telling him like, you got upset and you got up to kind of run to talk to that girl or run up on her. It looked like you were trying to, it did. It looked like he was like gonna put his hands on her. That's what it gave. He didn't do it, but that's the vibe that it gave. And Cliff told him he should have not been angry the way he was. It made him look guilty. And basically, Cliff is telling him like, I still consider you my friend. And what my wife and her friend got going on, he's like, that doesn't have nothing to do with me. He said he didn't know about um, the questions and he didn't know about the DMs. And I believe Glenn. Latrice probably didn't tell him about all that. So for Glenn, I believe Cliff. I'm sorry. Excuse me. If I said Glenn, I'm sorry. I believe Cliff. If Glenn is trying to hold Cliff accountable, I felt like he was out of line to try to do that because Cliff has nothing to do with it. He doesn't. He only knows what Latrice tells him, and if Latrice doesn't tell him, then he obviously doesn't know anything about it. So Glenn, instead of being a man and owning his own shit, to try to hold Cliff's feet to the fire, just like Letitia tried to hold Latrice's feet to the fire, I think is stupid. And at this point, they belong together because they act alike. Okay. Um, let's see. So then Glenn tells Cliff that he's having a recommitment ceremony, but he's not going to invite Latrice because he's not going to invite him and Latrice because of the issue or whatever. So, and Cliff in his confessional says, he's upset that he's not inviting them, but he understands. And he told Glenn he understands that he's not being invited. At the end of the day, it's like you basically just went over there to tell him you were planning on doing that and you're not going to invite him. And I don't know if he called himself trying to check Cliff because, again, Cliff ain't got nothing to do with that. At the end of the day, you are the one who jumped in somebody's DMs. We would not be having this conversation had you not jumped in anybody's DM. So all the accountability falls on Glenn's feet. So next we have Selena. Selena, Latrice, and Cliff are on the way to Selena's son's house where he had lived when he was unalived. And I'm not gonna go into all this because this part right here was sad. Selena has been crying all this season, about her son and mourning her son. And we've said that episode after episode, so I'm not gonna go in on this, but basically she hasn't been to her son's house since his passing. She goes over there with everybody there to support her, and she kind of breaks down and ends up crying while she's there. And then Latrice in her confessional tells us that her and Cliff are going to put the money up, a reward money, because the case is still unsolved. So they're gonna put some reward money up. So hopefully somebody can come forward with any knowledge or information regarding the passing of Selena's son, and justice for Quincy. All right, so we're going to move to the next subject. So next we have Glenn and his recommitment ceremony. Um, Letitia pulls up and they get into it because she says she doesn't know what's going on. he was planning a surprise for her, but he didn't plan it right because apparently he was trying to have maybe some of her staff or friends or somebody to help him plan for it. And then they let the cat out the bag and telling her that Glenn was planning on something and that she was supposed to, dress up. But then she's like, she doesn't know what to wear. What is she supposed to do um, with that information because he just did a terrible job of planning it, just terrible. And then they're sitting there fighting, and he's telling the cameraman to stop. And my thing is like, all they do is fight. All they do is bicker and fight. And you guys are fighting about having a recommitment party. Like the whole thing that you're having a recommitment is because you've been fighting and arguing about this DM situation, but you're still fighting about small stuff. So I really feel like Glenn is never gonna leave Letitia. Letitia is gonna have to be the one who's gonna be fed up and leave. And if she never leaves because of um, low insecurities and no self confidence, then Glenn is just gonna keep doing what he does. Um, so then we have and then in her confessional or whatever, she's saying she deserves more, and but she keeps putting up with it. I'm like, no, you don't believe that you deserve more because if you did, you would take action, and you haven't taken any action. So therefore, you don't believe that you deserve more. Um, Next, we have um, Marie and Cedric. Cedric is finally getting rid of that mattress. He got rid of the mattress finally. Um, So then that was that. So then we have Glenn goes to the park to set the things up for the recommitment ceremony or whatever it was because I didn't even see a pastor there. But and then yes, he was at the park, and because he messed up, because he didn't plan it right, because he didn't have the planners, and he didn't have anything organized, he ended up having to go to the park himself, and put up the chairs and the flower, and set everything up himself, and then he sat there and waited for people to show up, because again he half-assed. It was just a half-ass situation. Next, we have Latrice and Cliff at Taste with with Tamara, I'm sorry, with Tamara, Cliff, Latrice, Selena, Carrie, and Matt. So all of them were at Taste. And then at Glenn's recommitment, you had Glenn, Letitia, Marie, Cedric, Glenn's stepdad, and Letitia's mom. And so the camera would like pan, go back and forth. So they would go to the park and then they would go to Taste. So at Taste, um, when everybody arrived, I noticed that Matt hugged Latrice, but he didn't dap up or shake or say anything to Cliff again. So I don't know if they had already spoken before off camera or they spoke but the camera didn't show us or they that was edited out of the scene or whatever because I thought it was odd that Matt gave Latrice a side hug but he didn't say anything to Cliff. Like, as a man you would dap him up or shake his hand or say something. But again, that didn't happen. So I don't know if it was cut out from the scene. But I just noticed that. I'd be like noticing like small stuff, and I thought that was kind of odd. Um, Selena looked beautiful. I loved Selena in that dress. Selena's a beautiful woman. Um, so then they pan back to the recommitment ceremony um, with Latrice showing up late. He was sitting there waiting for her, panicking, thinking she wasn't going to show up, but she ended up showing up, and they did the recommitment. And okay, so when they were doing the little recommitment, Glenn um, was giving his speech, and then Letitia was giving her speech, and then the camera would pan over to Taste. So at Taste, Tambra said that when it comes to Glenn, that there's a pattern. And when she said that, I was like, oh my God, that is so true. That is so true. That was 1,000% correct, Tamra. Because it is a pattern, she said that every time that he fucks up or he gets caught or he does something to hurt Letitia, then he does something to make it up. Like she said, like when that situation came up with that baby, when they thought there was a side baby on that one season, and they talked about it that whole entire freaking season, and then he had to take a test, but it came out that the child wasn't his, which was good. But it had Letitia in an emotional roller coaster, and she was upset, of course, or whatever. So like the same shit that we went through on this episode. And then what did he do? He ended up like recording a rap song. He had JJ in the studio with him, and then he had everybody come to this place, and he performed that rap song, and that was that episode. And then now this episode, he's having a recommitment. So Tamara's right. There is a pattern. Every time he screws up, he does something. He tries to do something either grand or performative to try to clean up his image. And then, of course, what's her name? She falls for it. Letitia. She falls for it, and then back the next episode is something new that he did. Either he jumped in somebody's DM or he was seen with somebody else. So it's very toxic, unhealthy marriage that they have. And then they pan back to them at the park. Latrice and Glenn, of course, holding hands, talking to each other. Glenn is sitting there crying a river, like he boohooing, crying. Obviously, not like with a tissue in his hand or whatever, but tears is running down his face. And I'm like, he's still not gonna change. He's still not gonna change. I hope he changes for her sake. Like I said, my thing is this with Letitia. Letitia, you do these brunches, you do woman empowerment. How are you going to do woman empowerment events and speak to women and try to empower women and encourage women when you are in this toxic marriage? You can't lead. You have to lead by example. You have to lead by example. So you can't lead, you can't mentor women, you can't try to do preservation when you yourself are in a toxic relationship and you can't even get out. You need to get out. I mean, I feel like if Glenn is not going to change, then she needs to preserve herself and her happiness, and she needs to leave Glenn. That's what she needs to do. And I keep saying on every commentary that I do, I say she needs to call Mel, okay? Because this is stupid. You going around here having these brunches and speaking to women and giving women empowerment. So it's like you're a hypocrite. I wouldn't listen to her. I would not go into none of her brunches, and I wouldn't even listen to anything she has to say. I wouldn't take no advice from her because Letitia, you're not a good example. You're a horrible example of woman empowerment because this man, and then she did was just blame Letitia all season long, and then he blames Cliff. Cliff ain't got shit to do with this. Cliff ain't got a goddamn thing to do with this at all. Period. Because he clearly didn't know. Letitia didn't tell him anything about the DMs. So you guys rather blame people instead of taking accountability. Glenn, you need to take accountability. Letitia, you need to take accountability to see Glenn for what he is, how he's the one playing in your face, okay? And he's the one you need to have all this energy for, but you don't have the energy for him because you want to put up with the bullshit. And if you do, that's fine. Just leave us out of it. Just leave us out of the group chat. Stop bringing it on every single episode, every single season. So, so then they pan back to the taste. Selena asked, "Do y'all think Glenn's gonna be a new Glenn and he's going to change?" Cliff said no. He's gonna change for the next 60 days, and he'll be right back to the same bullshit. When he said that, I agree with Cliff 1,000%. He's right. Glenn is gonna change for 60 business days. 60 business days, and that's it. And after that, he's gonna go right back to his old ways, and then Latrice gonna say, Um, so Latrice said, "What is that? What is it? How's that saying go? A tiger or zebra don't change their stripes." And Cliff said, "Neither one of them." Okay, neither one of them, and he's right. A cliff, I mean, yeah, cliff, a tiger or a zebra, they don't change their stripes. But yeah, y'all, he is not going to change. Um, she's talking about people need to stop playing in her face. The main person playing in your face is right there, sitting in your face. So I need her to get it together. Y'all drop down in the comments. Let me know what y'all think about this episode. This episode to me it was short. It was the season finale. Um, um, this whole season two was boring as hell. It was boring because Tamra didn't give us anything. Tamra only came on there to talk to us about the finance, and then I was happy to see the baby though. Um, and then Serena, all she did was cry all season, and then this whole season it was about Glen and the DMs. And I wish they would have had Amanda on more. They need to bring Amanda next season, and they need to bring her on more because if it wasn't for Amanda and those DMs, there wouldn't be a story. Like this whole season wouldn't have not existed without Amanda and her DMs. And it was weird how after that happened, they just like they never showed her again. So anyway, that was it. That's it. That's all. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.